I wanted to ask you, because you've got an impressive academic background. You've got, what, a master's degree from Oxford, you mentioned, but then you've also got a master's in creative writing and publishing from the City University in London. And I was just curious in reading that, what does getting a master's in creative writing and publishing do for you that a master's in English from Oxford didn't already do?
So when I was at Oxford, I was trained to be a scholar. I was trained to be a professor, someone who's going to be able to absorb knowledge, impart knowledge, everything in between. And when I was at City is not a technical school because I feel like it's not really that classification, but we learned a trade. So like my trade was I understood about publishing. So things like rights, contracts, international publishing, what it actually means to be an editorial assistant, the different, what publicity is, how does that differ from marketing? And what City allowed me to do was actually be immersed in an industry versus being immersed in a subject. So like Oxford, I studied texts. City, I studied an industry. And I think that the combination of both of those was super helpful because I understood going into publishing what I was actually getting myself in for. So when I was at City, I got an internship at Faber and Faber in London. And Faber and Faber, their first editor was T.S. Eliot. Like it has this wonderful historic heritage, and it was a lovely, lovely place to be. Like I could not have asked for a better entry to publishing than City and Faber. So together, I have the writing side and kind of the business side of creative writing. And also at Oxford, I wasn't writing creatively in the same way. Like I wasn't writing any fiction at all. I was working on a thesis about Toni Morrison and Tasha Trethewey and like vicarious historicism. You know, was not really a term that I toss around in my daily life in publishing.
Well, maybe you could start. It's a nice
maybe one. If I remember what it meant, that would be helpful. I think I actually came up with that term, if I remember correctly. If this was like my thing of vicarious historicism, whatever that is.
I'm going to toss that out in a future podcast. You just wait, esteemed audience.
Okay. Let me know what it means when you get there. I think that Oxford, it was this weird combination of everyone trying to prove that they were smarter than each other. And if I made my texts so obscure that no one else could understand it, like that meant that I was the smartest. And going back and kind of rereading my stuff, I was like, what was I talking about? And I wrote this. So, and maybe not all scholarship is like that, but that was part of the reason why after Oxford, I decided that I wasn't going to go into academia. Ironic now that I teach creative writing, but I was going to go on and get my PhD. I actually got into Oxford for their DPhil program, which is the same kind of as a PhD, different years and kind of different structure. But and I just decided that it wasn't for me because I didn't want this cutthroat, competitive, I'm smarter than you, and intelligence is the thing that matters the most in the world, because it's not. And I think that there's a certain arrogance about people who go to Oxford, and my husband even noticed about me when I went there. He was like, your head is a lot bigger than it used to be. And it took me a while to kind of dial that back and be like, oh, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. So now I've kind of got this middle ground of I know all of these things, but I'm no longer kind of high up in the sky, scholarly about it.
That was one nice thing. I didn't have the opportunity to go to Oxford, tragically. I did go to Indiana University. And while I was studying there, I was studying literature and writing. I was also working a day job, which was wonderful because I go back to the day job and I talk about these writers and I get blank stares and like, we have no idea who you're talking about. I'll never forget, I couldn't have been more thrilled to have gotten first an interview with Richard Adams, available now at middlegradeninja.com, and then later a blurb. And I walk into the office. I was out of college at that time, and I'm just over just overjoyed, the happiest I could ever be. And I'm bragging to everyone, and everyone just in turn says, who is this Watership? What now? Which was a nice reminder of, hey, we all love books and writing. We're all having a great time, but let's keep this in perspective.
Yes. So I often talk to people about that of especially with my family and the other people in my family who are kind of like more distant relatives, of have no idea about how publishing works or anything like that. And it's actually really, really nice to have those people in your life sometimes, of getting that perspective of sometimes when you are in publishing and in the kind of business of books, sometimes it's a very small world, which can be nice, but also sometimes it feels like that's the only thing that matters. And it's really, really not. It's really not. So the farther I get away from publishing in some ways, the happier I am. And I tell this to my students. I feel like I keep saying that over and over again. But I think that when we come into publishing and come into writing stories, it's like we are presenting our souls on a platter and saying, like, do you like this thing? I've made it. It's all of me. But really, it's not all of you. Like, the thing that you create is not you. It is a part of you, but you are so much more than that. And I'm hoping that maybe this is something that people can recognize in quarantine when they aren't writing as much, or maybe they are writing as much. But like, take me, like, when I started, I thought this book that I have written, If Birds Fly Back, like, this is again my soul on a plate. But I also have a dog who like doesn't know that I'm a writer at all, and she still really, really likes me. Like, my parents still love me. I still have a wonderful husband. I like gardening. I enjoy walking. I like hiking. Like, none of these things have to do with my books at all. And I think that sometimes we can fall into this trap of thinking that our success or failure in creative writing has something to do with our value as people. And that to me is just factually incorrect. I don't know, maybe you have a different opinion on that.
No, I 100% agree. I used to have this foolish idea that when I finally published the first book, then that would be everything, and every sacrifice, every bad thing that had happened prior to that would all be made better in that moment, and glory awaited. And I also had this foolish idea that I would know when people were reading me, and that would bring me satisfaction. No, I get messages every so often from somebody that just read Pizza Delivery, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that thing exists. Well, I'm glad you liked it. There's no feeling of whether 10 people are reading, 10,000 people, however many folks are reading, you're not going to know about it. So that also this, I don't know if it's a foolish idea, but this idea that if you could write a book that becomes a classic, then you are in a sense immortal. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that William Shakespeare is feeling particularly great. Whatever plane of existence he is, like, oh, they're still doing Hamlet. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I think that comes down to, again, like, what your belief on the afterlife is and all of that. And it's obviously nice when people read your work. And like, I love connecting with readers, especially like readers who like love dogs, and we can kind of talk about their pets. Like, I love when people send me pictures of their pets with the book. I think that is probably my favorite thing. But you're right. I don't know. I think that one of the things that I would have loved to kind of tell myself earlier is, first of all, there's no rush for any of this. I think that the publishing industry puts a lot of emphasis on youth, and a lot of emphasis on a debut. Like, if you don't debut powerfully for some reason, like, that's going to be the end of your career. It's really not. Like, this is a long journey. That's kind of what I'm realizing after I finished like my fourth book. And also, you just have to write what you love, and whether or not other people are responding to that is in a lot of ways outside of your control. But the measure of your success is how much kind of effort and how much love you put into it, and not necessarily sales on Nielsen.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, why are you doing it?
Oh yeah, what is the point? Why would we do this?